On a normal day in the quiet Villa Esperanca, where everyone knew everyone and secrets were rare, the sun shone brightly, its golden rays illuminating the cobblestone streets, while a gentle breeze carried the scent of newly bloomed flowers from the well-tended gardens. The colorful facades of the houses vibrated with the daylight, mingling with the distant sound of the church bell, which announced the passage of time. Under the leafy trees, elderly people sat on wooden benches, sharing stories of ancient times, while children played carefree. Among them was Clara, an 8-year-old girl with curly hair that swayed happily as she ran, her large, curious eyes reflecting a mixture of fascination and innocence. She loved exploring the central square, always looking for adventure in the most unexpected places. But that day, something unusual happened. When Dona Helena, her mother, went to call her for lunch, she was nowhere to be found. At first, he thought Clara was hiding, playing hide-and-seek as she often did. However, after calling her repeatedly without an answer, despair began to set in. Hours passed, and the search for the girl intensified. Neighbors, friends, and even the local police joined forces in a collective effort to find her. While the small town was in turmoil searching for Clara, an even more unexpected event occurred in the courthouse in the neighboring city. Judge Carlos Moreira was conducting a routine hearing when the door to the courtroom opened abruptly, and a police officer entered holding the hand of a small, frightened girl. It was Clara. Her face was stained with tears, and her clothes, torn and dirty, told a story of pain and suffering. The entire courtroom fell silent, every eye on the girl, waiting for her words. With a trembling voice, but full of courage, Clara said, "Sir, let me live with you. My father and mother did this to me." The unexpected statement caused absolute shock in the room. The judge was speechless, and everyone in the jury held their breath. Within seconds, the police officers present were out searching for those responsible, while the room filled with murmurs and expressions of astonishment. What seemed like an ordinary day turned into a moment of revelation and justice for everyone in Villa Esperanca. The courtroom fell into a deep silence, shaken by the unexpected revelation. Judge Carlos, a middle-aged man with gray hair and a serious look, immediately called a break in the hearing. Sensing the gravity of the situation, he led Clara to his office and quickly called the social worker, Dona Marta, to join the conversation. Sitting in a chair that seemed too big for her small body, Clara began to tell her story between sobs. "They beat me every day. I can't take it anymore. Today, I ran away. I want to go far away. I thought it would be safe here," she said, with tears streaming down her face. Dona Marta, moved, wiped her own tears as she tried to console the girl, at the same time asking questions to better understand what had happened. "Clara, how did you get here? Who brought you?" Marta asked in a soft but firm voice. The girl took a deep breath before answering. "I came walking. I asked a young man who saw me on the road for help. He brought me to the police station, and the police brought me here." As Clara spoke, Judge Carlos pondered, reflecting on what he had just heard. He knew the girl's family well. They were seen as normal people and active in the community, but he knew that appearances did not always match reality. Determined to act quickly to protect Clara, the judge sent Dona Marta, accompanied by the police, to the family's home, while he called the girl's parents, asking them to come to court immediately. When Dona Helena and João arrived, both showed a mixture of concern and anxiety. However, when they heard about Clara's accusations of mistreatment, their expressions changed drastically from concern to indignation. "This is absurd. We would never hurt our daughter," exclaimed João, his voice echoing off the walls of the courtroom. Dona Helena, with tears streaming down her face, shook her head in disbelief. "Clara must be confusing things. She's a sensitive child. Sometimes she makes up stories," she explained. But Clara stood firm, her voice small but resolute. "It's not a lie. I just want to stay away from you." "Clara, my dear, why are you saying these things? We love you. Everything we do is for your own good," her father replied, taking a step forward, trying to control his evident anger. Clara backed away a little, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and determination. You hurt me. That's not love. Love doesn't hurt like that, she replied. Helena tried to intervene, her voice trembling and full of emotion. Clara, sometimes I yelled at you, but that doesn't mean we don't love you. You're everything to us. But Clara shook her head and, with a wounded voice, replied, It's not just yelling, Mom. It's the cruel words. I feel scared all the time. João took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. Please come home. We promised that everything would be different this time. Clara, however, shook her head resolutely.
No.
I don't want to go back. You always say that, but nothing changes. I can't stand living in fear anymore, she screamed, her voice echoing through the room. Surprised by the intensity of her own emotions, Helena looked to Judge Carlos, seeking some kind of support. Mr. Judge, please, we need a chance to show that we can change. We love our daughter, and this situation is destroying us, Helena pleaded with a trembling voice and tears streaming down her face. Judge Carlos, who had remained silent until then, finally intervened. Mr. João, Miss Helena, Clara's accusations are extremely serious. Our priority here is to ensure her safety above all else, he said firmly. He turned to the social worker. Ms. Marta, please continue with your investigation. In the meantime, Clara will be under your supervision. Mr. João clenched his fists tightly, his eyes flashing with anger. My daughter is just a confused child, he exclaimed, trying to dismiss Clara's story. The girl, however, looked directly at her father, her voice low but full of determination. I'm not confused. I know what you did, and I know I deserve better, Clara said firmly, looking at her father with a look that showed that, from that moment on, she would no longer let fear control her. It was her turn to fight for her well-being and safety. Helena, visibly shaken, began to cry uncontrollably. Clara, please forgive me. I know I made a mistake, but I promise I can do better. Don't abandon us like this, she begged, her voice full of pain and regret. Clara felt a wave of compassion for her mother, but she knew she couldn't give in. Mom, I love you, but I need safety, peace. If you really love me, you'll understand that, the girl replied, firmly, but with a tone of sadness. Judge Carlos raised his hand, asking for silence in the room. We will resolve this in the fairest way possible, ensuring Clara's well-being. Mr. João, Mrs. Helena, this court will closely monitor the case and ensure that all necessary measures are taken to protect Clara, he stated authoritatively. Mr. João shook his head, still unable to accept what was happening. This is a nightmare, our own daughter turning against us, he said in disbelief. Clara interrupted him gently. I'm not against you. I just want to live without fear. I just want to be happy. With these words, Clara was taken by Mrs. Marta to a safe place, while her parents remained in the courtroom, digesting the harsh reality that their own actions had created. From that moment on, a new phase began for Clara, marked by the hope of a better future and the strength of those who had the courage to speak the truth. Given the gravity of the accusations, Judge Carlos decided that Clara would temporarily remain under the custody of Mrs. Marta while the investigations continued. In the following weeks, interviews with neighbors, teachers, and friends revealed a worrying pattern of behavior on the part of Clara's parents, who often hid the marks of the abuse and justified their daughter's behavior as rebellious. As the case unfolded, Clara found a safe haven in Dona Marta's house. Dona Marta, a loving and dedicated woman, treated Clara as if she were her own daughter. Little by little, the girl began to smile again, to play, and to live the childhood she had always dreamed of. Meanwhile, at Clara's parents' house, the tension increased day by day. Dona Helena and Mr. João began to argue frequently, and the secrets they both kept began to emerge. During one afternoon of heated discussion, Dona Helena, exhausted and desperate, revealed something that even surprised her. João, you can't keep doing this. I can't stand hiding what you do anymore, she exclaimed, her voice trembling. João, furious, grabbed Helena's arm tightly, his face contorted with rage. Helena, you know that all of this is your fault. If you were a good mother, none of this would have happened. Helena tried to pull away, but João tightened his grip on her arm, holding her brutally.
Let me go, João.
I'm not going to live in fear anymore. Clara was right to run away. She just wanted to escape this hell. João's anger grew. Are you going to blame me now? You've always been weak, Helena. I never knew how to take care of our daughter, and now you want to blame me, he said, his voice echoing off the walls of the house. Helena, with tears in her eyes, felt a mixture of fear and determination grow inside her. I was weak because you made me weak. I accepted your aggressions because I thought it was the only way to protect Clara, but I was wrong. I hurt her to try to divert your anger from her, but I can't do that anymore, she declared, with a courage she had never felt before. Furious, John pushed Helena against the wall, his fury growing more and more. Are you accusing me of being a monster? I am the man of this house, and everything I did was to maintain order, he shouted, trying to justify his actions. If you had supported me, Clara wouldn't have run away, João shouted, his voice choked with anger and resentment. Helena, trembling, felt an unexpected courage well up inside her. It was you who destroyed our family, João. You made us live in fear, day after day, she replied, her voice firm but full of pain. At that moment, Helena got up and ran to her room, looking for a refuge where she could feel safe. The confusion had left her not only scared, but also exhausted, and there, in that space that was still somewhat hers, she fell asleep peacefully, with the hope that the nightmare was about to end. After all, the investigation would begin the next day. Days later, during the investigation at the couple's house, Dona Marta, the social worker, searched the place for clues. It was then that, at the bottom of a forgotten drawer, she found an old diary, covered in dust. As she leafed through it, Marta came across shocking revelations. Helena described in detail the constant fear she felt of her husband. She was the main victim of the abuse, and the aggressions she committed against Clara were, in fact, a desperate attempt to divert attention from her violent husband. Helena, albeit wrongly, was trying to protect her daughter in any way she could, suffocated by the daily terror she faced. With these revelations in hand, Dona Marta immediately sought out Judge Carlos, and, in a short time, João was arrested, beginning a new phase for everyone involved. Helena, in turn, took the first steps in a long process of psychological recovery. Clara, finally free from the toxic environment, was adopted by Dona Marta, with whom she found the loving and safe home she had always dreamed of. João's arrest marked a true transformation in the lives of each of them. The house, previously immersed in fear and tension, was now a place of silence and reflection. Dona Helena, despite feeling immediate relief at João's absence, was consumed by a mixture of sadness, guilt, and, at the same time, a strange sense of freedom. She knew that, in order to truly help Clara and herself, she needed to face her own demons and seek help. Determined, Helena began attending therapy sessions with a psychologist who specialized in trauma and domestic abuse. Over time, the small Vila Esperança began to transform. The community, previously accustomed to murmurs and suspicions, began to unite around a new reality, trying to understand what had happened in that house. The impact of the revelations shocked everyone, but also brought to light issues that had previously been ignored. Helena, as she worked on her recovery, felt the weight of a greater responsibility, rebuilding her own life and trying, in some way, to make peace with her painful past. Clara, in turn, began to blossom under Dona Marta's care, discovering, day after day, the meaning of living without fear. That scenario, which previously seemed doomed to darkness, now opened up to new possibilities, marking a new beginning, full of challenges, but also of hope. Transformed by the courage of a girl who dared to speak the truth, Clara now lived in safety, growing up with the conviction that justice and true love can prevail even in the darkest moments. As time passed, Clara blossomed. Her eyes, once filled with fear, began to reflect the peace and serenity she had never known. One day, Clara and Dona Helena met again in a city park, a place where the laughter of children and the singing of birds filled the air with a sense of renewal. Clara was older, her steps more sure, and her expression lighter. Helena, although still marked by the scars of the past, showed clear signs of recovery, a reflection of her constant struggle to overcome her traumas. They sat on a bench side by side, a thick silence hanging between them, heavy with unspoken emotions and painful memories. "Mother, I forgive you," Clara finally said, her voice sweet and firm, full of compassion. "I know you did what you could." Helena, with tears in her eyes, felt a wave of relief and pain at the same time. "Thank you, my daughter. I only wanted to protect you, but I know I made many mistakes," she replied, her voice soft and broken with regret. "We are safe now, Mother. We are free," Clara murmured, a slight smile forming on her lips. That simple conversation, on that sunny day, marked a new beginning for both of them. They no longer needed to look back in fear. They could finally move forward, each in their own way, in search of a new life. Clara continued her life alongside Dona Marta, who had become her true family. Despite this, she never forgot her mother's sacrifices, which, although mistaken, were made in an attempt to protect her from a cruel reality. Every visit to the park or a walk through the city was a silent reminder of the pain and overcoming that marked her past. Meanwhile, the city of Villa Esperanza, which had previously turned a blind eye to the signs of abuse, learned a valuable lesson. The community has become more attentive and willing to protect the most vulnerable, understanding that silence can often be as harmful as the violence itself. And so, the park where Clara and Helena met for the first time, after so many years of pain, has become a symbol of hope, rebirth, and the importance of not ignoring the silent cries of those who suffer in silence. Judge Carlos, deeply moved by Clara's case, decided to step up his work on behalf of children and families at risk. Determined to bring about real change, he initiated new psychological and social support programs, working closely with Dona Marta and other social workers to create a more comprehensive and effective protection network. Clara's story, although painful, revealed the urgent need for profound transformations in the community, inspiring Villa Esperanza, a small town, to become a symbol of resilience and change. Over time, the town showed the world that even in the most difficult times, courage and love can triumph and help heal the deepest wounds. However, the complexity of Clara's situation deepened when Dr. Ricardo, a renowned child psychiatrist, was invited to assess the girl's emotional state and provide ongoing psychological support. With his careful and patient approach, he helped Clara explore her innermost feelings and process the traumas she had faced. In one of the sessions, Clara revealed something she had never told anyone. "Sometimes I see my father in my dreams. He's always angry, telling me that this is all my fault." Dr. Ricardo, sensing the pain behind the girl's words, looked at her with compassion and said, "Clara, dreams can be scary, but they're just dreams. You know that none of this was your fault, right? Your father was wrong to hurt you, and you were very brave to ask for help." Clara nodded, but the tears continued to roll down her face. "I miss my mother. She was different when my father wasn't around." Dr. Ricardo, with an encouraging smile, replied, "We'll work on it, Clara. Your mother is also recovering, and the two of you will find a way to get through this together." While Clara continued with her therapy, Dona Helena also sought help to deal with her own traumas. She began attending support groups and therapy sessions, where she received guidance to understand the cycle of abuse she had experienced and inadvertently perpetuated. During one of these sessions, she had an important revelation about herself. "I always thought I was protecting Clara by keeping everything a secret, but now I realize that I only perpetuated the pain. I want to be a better mother to my daughter, someone she can trust and love." Helena confessed her intentions to the group with a mixture of regret and determination, knowing that her journey of healing was just beginning. Over time, mother and daughter found ways to rebuild their bond, facing the ghosts of the past together, while the community of Villa Esperanza watched and learned from their courage and will to transform. The meetings between Clara and Helena became more frequent, always under the watchful eye of Dona Marta and Dr. Ricardo. With each meeting, mother and daughter gradually rebuilt their relationship, now based on honesty and true love. At the same time, the city of Villa Esperanza also underwent a significant transformation. Inspired by Clara's story, residents began to come together with the goal of creating a safer and more welcoming environment for all children. Several awareness campaigns on domestic violence were organized, and the city's schools incorporated emotional education and psychological support programs for their students. During one of these community meetings, Judge Carlos gave a moving speech that touched everyone's hearts. He emphasized, "Clara's story showed us the importance of being vigilant and acting quickly and compassionately. Each of us has a responsibility to protect the vulnerable and ensure that our community is a safe place for everyone." His words echoed throughout the hall, reinforcing the community's commitment to protecting its most vulnerable members. Over the years, Clara grew strong and resilient. With the constant support of Dona Marta, Dr. Ricardo, and her mother, she overcame many of the challenges that came her way. At school, Clara became a dedicated student and a fervent advocate for children's rights, inspiring everyone around her with her courage and determination. When she turned 16, Clara was invited to speak at a municipal event about her experience and the importance of fighting child abuse. In her speech, Clara spoke with an eloquence and emotion that captivated the audience. "I know that many of you know me as the girl who asked the judge for help, but today I want you to see me as someone who found strength in love and truth. My past was painful, but it taught me the importance of never giving up and always seeking justice. I thank everyone who helped me, and I hope my story inspires other children to speak up and seek help." With these profound words, Clara ended her speech, receiving a standing ovation from the audience, many of those present with tears in their eyes. Clara felt a wave of pride and gratitude fill her heart. She knew there was still a long way to go, but she was ready to face it, confident that she had a support network by her side. After the event, Dr. Ricardo approached Clara, moved by the young woman's performance. "You were incredible, Clara. I'm so proud of you," he said with a sincere smile. Clara, still moved, replied, "Thank you, Dr. Ricardo. I couldn't have done it without you, Dona Marta, and my mother. You gave me a new chance to be happy." Grateful for the young woman's words, Dr. Ricardo decided to recognize the strength and courage she had shown throughout her journey. "This happiness is all yours, Clara. You deserve all the good things that life has to offer." Over time, Clara and Dona Helena managed to build a solid and loving relationship, now based on mutual respect and understanding. Helena, free from Joao's clutches and her own traumas, became a dedicated and present mother. Together, they began to help other families in similar situations, sharing their story and offering support. The small Villa Esperanza, transformed by Clara's courage and determination, became an example of how a united community can protect its most vulnerable members. And so, even in the most difficult moments, courage and love prevailed, healing the deepest wounds and bringing hope for the future. If you are moved by this story, the next video that is appearing on your screen will certainly touch you deeply too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like it, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. A big kiss, and see you in the next exciting story.